Brothers and sisters, hello. We are going into a new season. Isn't that remarkable? You know that on December the 21st, we are going into the winter solstice, but it's kind of starting now. The days are shorter, the nights are longer. But check this, and I mentioned it before 4 days after the winter solstice, the earth and the sun get closer. So our ancestors, thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon years ago, called that period between December 1st, December 25th, the birth of the sun. S-U-N. Now, isn't that curious? Brothers and sisters, I want you all to think about what I'm saying. But it is so good to be with you. I got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to get right into one of the books that got me crying, laughing, praying, the whole bit. And I bet it's got you doing that too. And that book is The Slave Ship. Yes, we have information from the captain's logs and even sailors' remembrances of what went on aboard the slave ship. And I want all of you who are of obvious African descent to understand, like Malcolm said, that's how we got here. We didn't come on the Mayflower, you dig? We came on the slave ship. So I know that many of you know a lot about, you've seen a few pictures and of all the black people crowded. But how often have you seen revolution aboard the slave ship? Hello. Yes. And this is why I created Readings with Regina, or at least one of the reasons why I created this series is because I want you to know about your revolutionary history, because I have heard scholars, I have heard a journalist say, well, black people never did nothing. I'm giving you the real deal here, and I'm giving it to you from books. All right? Why? Because it is important for black people to read more than they have been, especially during this generation. So we're going to start with, I'll show you it again, Marcus Rediker's The Slave Ship, A Human History. Now, this section is called Sarah. When the young woman came aboard the Liverpool slave ship, the Hudibras, in Old Calabar in 1785, she instantly captured everyone's attention. She had beauty, grace, and charisma. Quote, sprightliness was in her every gesture, and good nature beamed in her eyes. End of quote. When the African musicians and instruments came out on the main deck twice a day for, quote, dancing, end of quote, the exercising of the enslaved, she, quote, appeared to great advantage as she bounded over the quarter deck to the rude strains of African melody, end of quote, observed a smitten sailor named William Butterworth. She was the best dancer and the best singer on the ship, quote, ever lively, ever gay, end of quote, seemed to sum up her aura even under the extreme pressure of enslavement and exile. Other sailors joined Butterworth in admiration, and indeed, so did Captain Jenkins Evans, who selected this young woman and one other as his, quote, favorites, end of quote. You know what that means. To whom he therefore, quote, showed greater favors than the rest, end of quote. Likely as small recompense for coerced sexual services. Slave ship sailors like Butterworth usually detested the captain's favorites, as they were required to be snitches. But for the nimble singer and dancer, oh, the sailors had the highest esteem. She was, quote, universally respected by the ship's company, end of quote. Captain Evans gave her the name Sarah. Now he's going to rename. I won't even get into that. He chose a biblical name, linking the enslaved woman, who was likely an Igbo speaker, to a princess, the beautiful wife of Abraham. Perhaps the captain hoped that she would share other traits with the biblical Sarah, who remained submissive and obedient to her husband during a long journey to Canaan. Soon the enslaved men on the Hudibras erupted in insurrection. Hello, hello, insurrection. The goal was to, quote, massacre the ship's company and take possession of the vessel, end of quote. The rising was suppressed, bloody punishments dispersed. Afterward, Captain Evans and other officers suspected that Sarah and her mother, who was also on board, were somehow involved, even though the women had not joined the men in the actual revolt. When questioned closely, with violence looming, they denied having any knowledge, but, quote, fear or guilt was strongly marked in their countenances, end of quote. Later that night, as male and female captives angrily shouted recriminations around the ship in the aftermath of defeat, right on, African brothers and sisters, it became clear that both Sarah and her mother not only knew about the plot, they had indeed been involved in it. Sarah had likely used her privileged position as a favorite and her great freedom of movement that this entailed to help with planning and perhaps even to pass tools to the men, allowing them to hack off their shackles and manacles. Oh, Sarah survived the Middle Passage, and whatever punishment she may have gotten for her involvement in the insurrection, she was sold at Grenada. Grenada, look up Grenada. That's where President, let's see, who was it? Not Bush. Let's see. I'm blanking. Anyway, that was when a contemporary president invaded Grenada. Okay, centuries after this, Grenada was invaded by the United States because the leader of the of Grenada was a charismatic black nationalist freedom fighter, Maurice Bishop. Boom, look it up. Anyway, Sarah was sold to Grenada with almost 300 others in 1787. She was allowed to stay on the vessel longer than most, probably with the special permission of Captain Evans. When she went ashore, she carried African traditions of dance, song, and resistance, right on, my sister, with her. How do you like that? How do you like that? Sarah, the dancer. It was good. I need you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, it was Reagan. President Reagan invaded Grenada. Look it up, because black people under Maurice Bishop threw off their shackles of colonialism and fought the whites in control. Okay, so the United States just had to become involved. All right, let me go to my next book. Thank you, sir. I need you. I love it. All right, where am I? Let me find this. Here we go. Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Y'all know why I love reading this book, because Linda Brent, Harriet Jacobs, was an actual enslaved sister girl. Boom. Okay, so her book is very important because you're going to get information straight from an enslaved woman's mind. All right, this is important. Why is this important? It is important because these people, they are our ancestors. You understand? So these books are extremely important. Okay, I feel a speech coming on, so I'm going to stop right now because I want to get Linda Brent's words out to you. This chapter is called The Church and Slavery. After the alarm caused by Nat Turner's insurrection had subsided, the slaveholders came to the conclusion that it would be well to give the slaves enough of religious instruction to keep them from murdering their masters. Yes. The Episcopal clergyman offered to hold a separate service on Sundays for their benefit. His colored members were very few and also very respectable, a fact which I presume had some weight with him. The difficulty was to decide on a suitable place for them to worship. The Methodist and Baptist churches admitted them in the afternoon, but their carpets and cushions were not so costly as those at the Episcopal church. It was at last decided that they should meet at the house of a free colored man who was a member. I was invited to attend because I could read. Sunday evening came, and trusting to the cover of night, I ventured out. I rarely ventured out during by daylight, for I always was filled with fear, expecting at every turn to encounter Dr. Flint, that was her owner, the pedophile owner, who was sure to turn me back or order me to his office to inquire where I got my bonnet or some other article of dress. When the Reverend Mr. Pike came, there were some 20 persons present. The Reverend gentleman knelt in prayer, then seated himself and requested all present who could read, to do so, to open their books, while he gave out the portions he wished them to repeat or respond to. His text was, quote, "Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters, according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart as unto Christ." End of quote. Pious Mr. Pike brushed up his hair till it stood upright, and in deep, solemn tones began, quote, "Hearken, ye servants, give strict heed unto my words. You are rebellious sinners. Your hearts are filled with all manner of evil. 'Tis the devil who tempts you. God is angry with you and will surely punish you if you don't forsake your wicked ways. You that live in town are eye servants behind your master's back. Instead of serving your masters faithfully, which is pleasing in the sight of your heavenly master, you are idle and shirk your work. God sees you. You tell lies. God hears you. Instead of being engaged in worshiping Him, you are hidden away somewhere, feasting on your master's substance, tossing coffee grounds with some wicked fortune teller. Yes. Now he's calling this person a fortune teller, but understand that the enslaved people had their own ways of reading the future, seeing what might happen to them. All right. Or cutting cards, that's the tarot, Tarot, with another old hag. Your masters may not find you out, but God sees you and will punish you. Oh, the depravity of your hearts. When your master's work is done, are you quietly together thinking of the goodness of God to such sinful creatures? No, you are quarreling and tying up little bags of roots to bury under the doorsteps to poison each other with. Yes, there were root workers during slavery and after slavery. They knew the power of plants and roots. Yes, God sees you. You men steal away to every grog shop to sell your master's corn that you may buy rum to drink. Oh, I didn't even realize this about enslaved. I don't blame them for wanting to get drunk. You're enslaved. All right. God sees you. You sneak into the back streets or among the bushes To pitch coppers, gambling. Although your masters may not find you out, God sees you, and he will punish you. You must forsake your sinful ways and be faithful servants. Obey your old master and your young master. I gotta stop it. I don't be meaning to stop, but I gotta say this. Obey your old master, obey your young master. Do you understand that Nat Turner was owned by a child? Yes. Many enslaved people were owned by children. Can you imagine a child telling you what to do and you're an adult? And if you didn't do it, you could be whipped? It's right here. You must forsake your sinful ways and be faithful servants. Obey your old master and your young master. Lord have mercy. What our people went through. Your old mistress and your young mistress. Can you imagine a sassy little white girl telling you what to do? If you disobey your earthly master, you offend your heavenly master. Dig that. White supremacy, people. Only white people were closer to God, not you. You must obey God's commandments. When you go from here, don't stop at the corners of the streets to talk. Black people want to talk to each other? We weren't even supposed to talk. I actually knew a brother from the South who told me that during this time period, his mother and father, they couldn't laugh on certain streets. They had to bury the, if they wanted to, you couldn't laugh. So you couldn't talk to each other either. But go directly home and let your master and mistress see that you have come. I must actually stop right there because I get excited. I guess y'all know, yeah, the girl gets excited all the time. But the point is, look, when I read some of this and really understand what our people went through, you dig? You can then understand why in regular schools they're not going to teach you this. Some college courses won't teach you this. But I'm going to teach you this. I want you to know what really happened to our ancestors in this Christian country. I know it's hard. And I'm going to stop preaching in a minute because I want to get to who's next? My girl Ida B. Wells. But I got to stop. And I got to talk to you people. Another reason I'm doing this too, hey, we going into a new season. It's important that you take real truth into the new season. Teach your children the truth. Here we go. Ida B. Wells, a wonderful newspaper woman. Now, Ida, for those of you who are new here, thank you, all my subscribers. You know I love you dearly. Truly, thank you for being here with me. Now, Ida B. Wells, if you don't know much about her, look her up too. A great woman. She is the first investigative journalist female in America. Notice I didn't say the first black. Nah, she the first woman to be an investigative journalist. We haven't gotten to that yet. This is the early part of her career. She is in her 20s. Now, she was born just after slavery was supposedly abolished. So we're talking about a new class of so-called Negroes, okay? Here we go. Now, she's just read something by Booker T. Washington. Those of you who don't know who Booker T is, do look him up. And this is what she was saying. Mr. Booker T. Washington, who was just beginning to get recognition for the success of his work at Tuskegee, wrote an article in the Christian Register. Blacks are Christian now. You just heard the Christian sermon to the blacks of Boston, Massachusetts, to illustrate his need for educated leaders. He said that it was asserted that, quote, 2/3 of the Negro preachers of the South were morally and intellectually unfit to teach or lead the people. Now, this moral conduct, I really want to emphasize that. How you carried yourself after the enslavement period, even though whites had made you immoral, nevertheless, you were to remain a moral individual. Your character meant a lot in the early 19th century. Okay. Although perhaps in the light of the foregoing, Mr. Washington told the truth, it seemed to me that it was a wrong thing for him to have made that criticism in a white newspaper. Hello. So far away from home. When the people needed such criticism, I felt he ought to have done as we did. See, she's a black nationalist. She's a black nationalist. Tell them about it at home rather than tell our enemies abroad. Yes, yes, yes. Of course, I said as much in an editorial, and that was the beginning of the acquaintance with Mr. Booker T. Washington. I was invited to attend the next meeting of the Farmers Convention, but I never got there. My travels were so successful that I felt I had at last found my real vocation. I thoroughly enjoyed my work because the people were so kind and helpful. It was quite a novelty to see a woman agent who was also an editor of the journal for which she canvassed. The free speech began to be in demand all up and down the Delta spur of the Illinois Central Railroad. So much was this so that the news butchers, these are the people that sold the newspaper, on one of the trains on which I traveled came and asked me for a copy of it. He said he had never known so many colored people to ask for a newspaper before. I told him we would be glad for him to handle it. Our circulation had increased in less than a year from 1,500 to 4,000. See, she worked for a black newspaper. And my salary came to within $10 of what I had received as a teacher. We printed the free press on pink paper to make it distinctive to a great many people who could not read. Who could not read. I afterward learned that some of the butchers, again, these are people that handle the newspapers, this is what they were called in the 19th century, were selling copies of the Police Gazette to many of the poor illiterates who wanted the free speech, but they could not read for themselves. You know, it was against the law for us to learn to read. So they got to asking for the pink paper. I suppose it was human nature for the butcher to take advantage of their ignorance. Okay. I think I'm going to stop right here because it's stuff I want to say. Brothers and sisters, right now this country wants you stupid, silent, and ignorant. Yes, they do. Technology is good. I am visiting with you right now because of technology, right? You dig? Understand? Oh, but you are not to use this technology too much. Person to person. Read to other people. Now we're coming into a season that, it's called Christmas, whatever, you give gifts. That's fine. I don't care. Give books as gifts. Give books as gifts. And to really extend that gift, you go over to whoever you gave the book to as a present and read with them. Start study groups. How do you think Black studies came into the universities? Black Panthers and others demanded it. Nobody gave us anything. And during the 60s and 1970s, Black people were reading more than they are now. This is why I stopped reading from my precious Ida B. Wells, because I needed to say that as we go into this book, this marvelous book, Assata. Assata. Assata, all right? Our hero. Now, Assata's in school now. She's in elementary school. Let's look at what she has to say. As we grew older, the differences between the black and white, the poor and the rich students grew bigger and bigger. Once a new teacher told us to make mobiles as homework. Most of us bought in cardboard, wood, or paper mobiles. One kid brought in a mobile made out of metals. Not just one kind of metal, but metals of different colors. I was in awe of this kid who had the resources to cut all those different, perfectly formed geometric shapes. The school was in a largely Jewish middle class neighborhood. There was a little island of black people in the middle, and that was where I lived. It was almost completely segregated from the white section. The school was right in the middle. In most of the black families, the mother and father both worked, and many worked 2 or 3 jobs and weren't able to spend a lot of time in the school. But some of the white parents were there for every little thing, from trips to cookie selling. And talk about pushy parents. To this day, I believe that some of them did most of their kids' homework. Black kids wrote a composition or a book report on plain lined paper and handed it in. Some of the white kids presented their reports bound in expensive binders. Some were typed, and each page was covered with plastic. I could just imagine asking my mother to type my homework for me or to give me money to buy binders and plastic sheets. She would surely have thought I had gone crazy. The white kids came to school with all kinds of junk, expensive pen and pencil sets, compasses, and one kid even had a slide rule, which I doubt he had the faintest idea how to use. The older they grew, the more snobbish the white kids became. They were always talking about what they had and what their parents had bought them. One girl, Marcia, horribly ugly to me, was always dressed like some kid in the movies or on TV. She was one of the super snobs in the class. One day, she came to school with weird looking mittens on. She said they were made of chinchilla and that it was the most expensive fur in the world. I raced home to ask my mother. I just knew she had to be lying because I had never even heard of chinchilla, and everybody I knew thought that mink was the most expensive fur on the market. I was really shocked when my mother told me she was telling the truth. Every year when we came back to school, we would inevitably be told to write a composition entitled, quote, My Summer Vacation, end of quote. Usually we stood in front of the room and read our compositions aloud. I was always fascinated by some of the places these kids had been to during the summer. Places like Spain, England, Brazil, Bermuda. Some of them even brought in slides and movies of their trips. After they finished talking, I wouldn't even want to read my composition about being down south with my grandparents. Yes, little Assata is discovering differences in class. Okay, now I want to stop here because I want to share with you some things that I think are important. I've already told you that I want you to buy books. You don't need to get that pocketbook for your friend. You don't need to get a blouse. You don't need to get a scarf like that. Books, books, books. In fact, wait a minute. I think I'm going to read Julia right now before I even show you some other books that I think that you should be interested in. This is Julia Wright. She wrote a book about genocide in Gaza, and this book can certainly go for the genocides in other places like Darfur, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Look, hey, gotta categorize what's going on in our time period. I'm going to embellish on this after I read this poem that Julia Wright wrote, and it's called The Homeless Dead. The Homeless Dead. Yesterday was Earth Day, and worldwide we honored our assaulted mother with sacred rites. Yesterday was Earth Day, and the media that serves the corporations, remember that line, that deplete the earth sent viral photos of Gaza's C-section giving birth to mass graves. Yesterday was Earth Day, and the bleeding mud where the tortured, executed, and plasticized bodies of the daughters and sons of Palestine were exhumed, revealed, an inhuman double bind. Not only do the Zionists, helped by the U.S. of A., commit genocide to steal an ancient land, but that stolen soil is at the same time declared terra non grata. For the native burial of the thousands killed, now ancestors, roaming the ruins of their homes, there is a new class called the homeless dead. Lord have mercy. The homeless dead. Julia, I love that line. A terrible, creative line. Now, check this out, people. When I started this series back in January this year, I read from the great Mumia Abu Jamal. Murder Incorporated is one of the books I highly recommend that you share with family and friends. Murder Incorporated by Mumia Abu Jamal and Stephen Victoria. Now check this out, people. I even got Murder Incorporated book 2 because they wrote a series. I think it's up to 4, but I'm on book 2 now. This is a monster. This will tell you about the history of this country, not just in the past, but what's going on right now. So you have to know how to connect the past with the present. Now, here's another, this is a comic book. I adore it. It's called Addicted to War. It's put out by veterans, Veterans for Peace. I love that organization. Veterans for Peace. Aaron Bushnell, that white soldier who immolated himself over the killings in Gaza. He was a veteran. He was a soldier. See, it is soldiers that go to war, not the elite, the rich whites and other nationalities, rich, that send their people to war. The United States, like this title says, I'm going to show it again because it's important, is addicted to war. Every household should have this book. It will tell you in comic book format, okay, about this country. So you can share it then with your youngsters. And I'm going to say this to you again before I sign off for today. I made these videos so that you parents can share them with your children. I did not make these for these to be kept secret. I want all youngsters, 12 and up, and if you have some precocious young ones under 12, share my videos with them. I do try to keep them under 30 minutes, but as you can see, I'm at 34 minutes right now, but I try to keep them condensed so that you can see how easy it is to read and then discuss. At the dinner table, discuss what you've read. As I've told you before, I want to create a generation of very intellectually smart Black people. This is the only way that we are going to move forward within our own race. White people do their thing. And I have to say this. Addicted to war, let me show you again. If you are addicted to war, you are a vampire. Yes, It is always a war. What war is President Trump talking about now? Talking about invading Venezuela. You know that. What have the Venezuelans done to the Americans? Yo, and this business about stopping drugs, lie, lie. And even if it was, which it is not, if there are drug addicts in this country, why don't you treat them? Why don't you see? I was a drug addict. I know what taking drugs is like. I know. Yo, yes. People who take drugs or people who drink drugs, whatever, they have mental issues that need to be resolved. You don't go to war in a country claiming that you want to stop the drugs from coming into the Americas, and all know, the CIA, FBI, know that Brazil is not sending drugs over here. But anyway, this is the country that we live in, my people. And if at all you think anything about the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, that this bad boy is supposed to be based on, you have to be an informed populace. And you have to take democracy into your own hands. Use it. These people are abusing it. Brothers and sisters, this is Tuesday, December the 16th. Boom. I'm going to be with you one more day for 2025. I'll see you on Thursday. That'll be our last day together for this year. I have loved being with you so very much. I absolutely look forward to, let me bring this up. I absolutely look forward to being with you again on Thursday. So, what's she saying? They don't care about drugs. Very good. That's right. They don't understand that. And see, my people, we are a people who have not been loved by our country. Okay? It's important to understand that, and it's important to take steps to rectify that for the young ones coming behind us. Now, I am going to sign off. I love you dearly. Know that I pray for you every morning and every night. I wouldn't dare say that if it wasn't true. I will see you on Thursday. Same time, same place. And in the meantime, in between time, take good care of yourself and those that you love.